Good evening. Welcome to our nightly devotional. Tonight we start a new series. We're going to be looking at the parables of Christ in the Gospel of Matthew. So tonight we're in Matthew chapter 13, and it's going to be a lengthy reading, but a short discussion or description explanation because Christ himself explains the parable to his disciples. So we're in Matthew 13, verses 1 through 23. That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat by the lake. Such large crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat in it, while all the people stood on the shore. Then he told them many things in parables, saying, "A farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow, but when the sun came up, the plants were scorched and they withered because they had no root. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. Still other seed fell on good soil, where it produced a crop, 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. Whoever has ears, let them hear." The disciples came to him and asked, "Why do you speak to the people in parables?" He replied, "Because the knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven has been given to you, but not to them. Whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. This is why I speak to them in parables." And then he quotes from the Old Testament. "Though seeing, they do not see. Though hearing, they do not hear or understand." And then he says, "In them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah." And he quotes again, "You will be ever hearing, but never understanding. You will be ever seeing, but never perceiving. For this people's heart has become calloused. They hardly hear with their ears, and they have closed their eyes. Otherwise they might see with their ears, see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn, and I would heal them." End quote. "But blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear. For truly I tell you, many prophets and righteous people longed to see what you see, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it. Listen then to what the parable of the sower means. When anyone hears the message about the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what was sown in their heart. This is the seed sown along the path. The seed falling on rocky ground refers to someone who hears the word and at once receives it with joy. But since they have no root, they last only a short time. When trouble or persecution comes because of the word, they quickly fall away. The seed falling among the thorns refers to someone who hears the word, but the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth choke the word, making it unfruitful. But the seed falling on good soil refers to someone who hears the word and understands it. This is the one who produces a crop, yielding 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. A couple of things. Number one, Christ speaks in parables for two different reasons. In this passage, he says, so that they don't understand. In another passage, he says, so that they could hear the things of heaven in a metaphor of the things of the earth so that they could understand. So which one is it? Well, yes, both. In this passage specifically, he quotes from Isaiah, describing the fact that their hearts had become calloused, uncaring, not wanting to hear. And so for those who are wanting to hear, parables make it easier. It describes a heavenly truth in words that they could relate to. It's an illustration, if you will, building a bridge between the inspiration and the application that is necessary for somebody to live a holy and obedient life. For those who are uncaring, unwilling to hear or understand, it's just another barrier for them. The second thing I'd like to talk about is the types of soil. Notice that the seed and the farmer are exactly the same. One farmer sowing seed, all the same seed. One ground doesn't get better quality seed than the other. Same seed, same farmer. What's the difference is the soils. And so you have several different types. You have, number one, the rocky, or the path, the hard trampled down path, where the seed just sits on top and the birds come and snatch it away. And that's really, I believe, speaking about those people whose hearts have become calloused and hardened. Number two type of soil is the soil with the rocks. And so it's a shallow soil, and they don't have good root depth. And so as soon as trouble comes, that which they had received with joy and sprung up, germinated quickly because of the heat within rocky soil, dies quickly too. The third type is that of weeds, and thorns, if you will, and the plant grows up and is choked out, is unable to get sufficient sunlight, and so it withers and dies. And the final one is good soil, and it produces a crop 160 or even 30-fold. Now, as a pastor, I have seen over decades, 23 years, I have seen that this parable, unfortunately, rings true. I've gone through the numbers, and over the years, almost without exception, the number of people getting baptized in 1 year, 2 years from then, 1/3 of them will remain in the faith, actively involved and participating in the faith. I can't see their hearts. But from external appearances, either they were rocky soil and they had great joy and sprung up, but no root, no connection, no support network, no relational help. They had no root. Or weeds. They got busy. They got stressed. And they drifted away from the church. And probably from the faith. The external appearances would say drifted away from the faith. They've returned to their life that they had previous to their decision. That can be a little discouraging when you lose 1/3 of those who do decide to accept Christ. But here it seems like that's normal. And so that can be some comfort to pastors out there, but it's also incredibly disheartening to lead people in the prayer of salvation, to be excited with them and for them, to see their lives improving and changing, and they get baptized, maybe even join as members, and 2 years later, they hardly darken the door of the church and they avoid you in the grocery store for a sense of shame. This is normal and tragic. And so I want to give you some good news. The good news is that as a gardener, and if you're a gardener or if you have farmed at any point in time, you know that the only way to get good soil is to make it. The ground grows rocks every year. Frost heave, it happens, the rocks come right up out of the ground. You're going to need to get rid of the rocks every year. And bare soil, that's not natural, at least not in a wet environment. Can't speak about the Middle East and whatnot, but nature abhors barren soil. And so the weeds will come. The weeds will sprout up as a covering for the soil to protect it from the UV radiation, and it'll begin that process of the earth reaching maturation. In our part of the country, that means woods. Eventually, if you leave the ground alone, a forest will be there. In other parts of the world, I'm sure different things will occur. So what does it take to get good soil? You got to remove the rocks, and you got to remove the weeds, and you got to do that on a regular basis. And you got to not walk around on it and trample it down and compact it to where there's no oxygen in that soil, and it makes it very hard for things to grow. If you've ever seen a path through a meadow, it's obvious. There's no grass on it, or it's very beat down and small. Don't trample on your faith. And don't ignore your faith, because rocks will come, weeds will come, and your soil won't be a good growing medium for the kingdom of God anymore. And the next thing you know, you'll see your former pastor in the grocery store, and you'll hope he didn't see you, and you'll skip a few aisles, figuring you'll come back and catch that aisle when he's probably moved on. I've seen it. Folks, get the rocks out of your garden. Pull the weeds. Do it on a regular basis. Pay attention to your soul. And your soil will be healthy and good. And the kingdom of God will grow and flourish in your life, and you will produce 100 or 60 or 30-fold the seed that was sown in you. May our great God bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And may you pay attention to your soul. Don't ignore it. It'll only get worse. But if you pay attention, you will grow and flourish. And God will be proud of you. And you'll make a difference in the world. Thank you, and good night.